choosing a school, a course, or a career path, there is so much to explore. But that's why we're here. Don't know where to start? Mag-browse ka muna sa blog namin. Baka ma-inspire ka sa mga student advice, study hacks, and adulting guides. Meron kami niyan dito. Or learn about career paths that match your skills and interests. Or chat with us. Tanong mo lang, we'll point you in the right direction. O let's say may dream school ka na. You can search for it and learn more about their programs and scholarships. At kung di ka pa decided, don't worry. Search and compare different schools to fit your needs. Pag ready ka na, submit an application. Easy. Maybe you're looking for a new hobby, certification, or degree? We've got online courses for that, and the learning doesn't stop there. Join a quest and pick something up with each visit through articles or videos. And the best part, you get to earn coins and redeem real rewards. Kaya sali na! With the right tools and information, we can find the best opportunities for you. Because the future can be scary. Pero tiwala lang. Keep exploring, keep learning with EdukasyonPH.
The world looked a lot different 15 years ago. Cell phones weren't yet smart. DVDs came in the mail, and building a digital business meant buying and maintaining expensive physical servers. Amazon looked a lot different too. We were an e-commerce company in need of a new type of infrastructure to support rapid growth. We set out to create a common set of secure services, APIs, and developer tools that would go on to become AWS, the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform with Amazon EC2 at its core. It started in 2006 with a single instance. People could tap into virtually unlimited computing potential. Businesses of all sizes could move from idea to market faster without needing to build their own data center. Flash forward to today, AWS now offers over 400 instance types tailored for virtually any workload. To get here, we knew we had to radically innovate to deliver significant performance improvements and cost savings to our customers. We started by reimagining virtualization with the Nitro system, offloading capabilities to dedicated hardware and software, which allowed for faster innovation, better price performance, and enhanced security. Today, AWS supports more security standards and compliance certifications than any other cloud provider. The Nitro system accelerated our partnerships to deliver custom chips and new instance types with ever-broadening compute, storage, memory, and networking options. We also introduced our own custom processors with Graviton and machine learning chips with Inferentia, further optimizing cost and performance. As AWS grew, our scale allowed us to save money and then pass those savings on to our customers. We were able to introduce our first price cut in 2014, and purchasing options like EC2 Spot and AWS Savings Plans continue to help customers reduce and optimize costs. We're innovating with new services to extend our compute on premises, helping customers run and manage their applications wherever they are. In the last 15 years, we haven't slowed down. We've helped millions of customers, from the newest startups to the largest enterprises, lower costs and innovate faster. And together, we're just getting started.
Building and managing a startup can be challenging. Our goal at Amazon Web Services is to help guide startups like yours on a successful journey. That's why we created AWS Activate. It's free to join and gives you access to a bundle of resources and tools, including AWS credits to help you get started on AWS support credits for expert assistance when you need it, and technical training and hands-on labs to get you up to speed and proficient with AWS services. Startups in some programs also receive special promotional offers, including discounts, free trials, and other startup-friendly perks that can add valuable tools to your startup. Plus, with Activate, you'll be able to access the AWS Activate console, built by the experts at AWS, which delivers recommended content personalized for your startup. The Activate console also makes it easier for you to track and monitor your AWS credits and costs, and get real-time updates on the health of your AWS environment. By joining AWS Activate, you'll gain access to a global network of developers and entrepreneurs who are achieving success on AWS. And you'll have opportunities to showcase your startup at AWS events, including summits and reInvent, and on the Startups blog, helping you reach potential customers. Ready to get started? Sign up for AWS Activate today.
We realize that high school, college, even a first job can seem scary. That's why we created EdukasyonPH to equip them with tools, connect them to schools, find scholarships, learn online, match their skills to courses and jobs out there. So their future wouldn't be as scary. EdukasyonPH.
I'm Rafael Kisumbing.
I'm Grace.
Representing the R users group of the Philippines.
I'm the CEO and founder of Filter.
Very excited to share AWS UG Buildhurst Plus. I'm a volunteer and co-organizer. Very important that you have the knowledge of what's the culture that you really want to put in place.
For us, it's really about finding really great, world-class digital and e-commerce talent. The Philippines has been a very good place to be.
Technology is actually a great equalizer. The community's inspiration is that, there's a safe space.
The fact that you joined, that's already a big step.
Having the platform of a very clear vision and values and a mission of the business and empowering people to make decisions.
This will not be the only episode that you will see. We will have a lot more. I'd also like to thank our co-presenter, AWS and AWS Lab. What is the Community Ignite series? This is bringing you short episodes that we bring in people, product, and of course purpose together. We want to uplift everyone. We want to make good developers, good professionals here in the country.
So I've been in the IT industry for 15 years now. Technology will stay for a long period of time, and then sabi nga nila, some of the jobs or roles na meron right now will be automated with technology.
I'm Michelle.
My name is Warren. Hello everyone.
The key factor for being a generalist, not just tech, but you expand across different industries.
To show na continuous kang nag-upskill.
I learn by teaching and I also learn by doing.
Of course, an investment in knowledge really pays the best interest.
Yung soft skills is very important. We get opportunities, the way we interact.
Kung yun talaga yung passion nyo, dun talaga kayo makakapunta.
We would like to thank our co-presenters, AWS and AWS Club Pilipinas. Hello everyone, welcome again to another Community Ignite series. I'm Rafi Kisumbing, also known as Young CTO. Our special guests wearing multiple hats.
Hello everyone. So ako si Alvin. I'm a senior solutions architect. I specialize on software development and I've been using AWS since 2008. I started off defining my infrastructure using CloudFormation, but since AWS Educate came to be, ito na yung kadalasan na ginagamit ko. Now, as you can see, there's actually a shift from writing YAML and JSON code to define your infrastructure to using an object-oriented programming language. And at the same time, you can actually deploy your infrastructure right alongside your code. So just imagine, diba, the speed and the agility.
I'd like to thank our co-presenter, AWS and AWS Club Pilipinas. Hello everyone, welcome and good evening. So those who are watching us live today. So welcome back to another episode of the Community Ignite series. Here we really want to deliver to you the best of people, the best of product, and the best of purpose together. And so we have assembled great panelists and speakers today to talk about the products. We experience products every day. Who are the masterminds and how do they plan for these products to avoid, to make sure that these products are up to specs, that they don't go beyond the initial timeline? What are their methodologies and how do they prepare for it? All right. So if you are again early in your career, you are young, you want to learn more, or maybe you just want to be young at heart, this series is definitely for you as we bring a lot of these technical, soft, and leadership skills available to you. Of course, if you want to learn more, please do follow us in our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're also now in TikTok as well and LinkedIn. Right? So you can search for us, AWS Club Pilipinas. So I'd like to thank our co-presenters, AWS and AWS Club Pilipinas, as mentioned. So today's topic is called Sprint to Success, right? Especially right now that we really want to become successful and it's a pace of innovation. You have to be fast. So we have to go there very fast. So sprint, but we want to avoid scope creep or basically an endless loop of things that will be added on and it will not be deployed anymore. So to do that, we have our first lightning talk. Before we go to our panel, I'd like to bring into the stage Edukasyon's own head of product, Z Gosalves. Right. So
Uy,
hello.
hello. Hi, Rafi. Thank you for
Hello.
having me, everyone. Good evening.
Yes, and I'm so excited for you to share your practices on how we bring product inside Edukasyon.
My pleasure. So, hi, everyone. And again, good evening. Thank you for joining this evening's lightning talk. And I hope you will get a lot out of not just from my slides, but from everyone's sharings throughout the panel discussion later on. So, with regards to scope creep, it's actually related to the management of scope. And since we only have like roughly 10 minutes for my slides, let's go through a quick overview, at least, of how we can manage scope creep and have time at the end for more specific questions for us to share. Okay. So without further ado, let's have a quick introduction of who I am. So again, I'm Zenon Gosalves. I'm the head of product at Edukasyon, and I graduated in 2011. I'm also a certified project management professional. So as you can see here, I'm a PMP. And throughout my career, I've delivered over 100 software solutions. So not just products of my own or products of the companies that I work for, but also the products that I have delivered through my project management career. So that's me, and enough about me. Let's talk about a bit about Edukasyon. So Edukasyon, the business has 4 growth pillars. If you've been through with the talk of Grace, our CEO, a few weeks ago, then you should have seen this slide. And it basically talks about 4 things. So people, product, profit, and purpose. And as you can see, a big part of our growth pillar is product. And technically, product just doesn't just revolve around product itself, right? You have to talk about the people involved in making that product, the purpose of having that product, and of course, having a sustainable business by making your product very profitable. Okay, so that's Edukasyon and that's me. Now let's go to the topic at hand. So there are many definitions of product management, and the most simple definition that I almost always use is the one from Atlassian, which defines product management as a craft of building the shared understanding with your team and stakeholders about the what, the who, and the why of your product. And the what asks about your product or your features. So it can be a suite of products like a product portfolio or a suite of features that altogether make up your product. And the next aspect would be the who. And it asks about your target customer and their needs. So who are you making that product for, right? And obviously the next aspect is the why, and it asks about the benefits or the value that you are providing to your product, to your target customer. And this doesn't exactly match the project management domain, but there are many overlaps because projects are done to create a unique product. So again, we do projects to create a unique product. Okay. So let me have some kind of mapping for you there. So again, the what, the who, and the why, if we try to somehow match that with project management, the project management domain, the what can be attributed to the scope part of project management. So basically scope management. And obviously this is the main part of our quick talk today, the scope. And the other two parts for who is your stakeholders. And obviously that's stakeholder management. And lastly, the why is more on the integration management, meaning how do you now integrate all of these moving parts of your product or even your project to justify you building that project and completing it on time. Okay. And there are other knowledge areas specifically for project management like scheduling, cost management, but let's stick to the topic for today, which is scope management. So scope management is all about creating or scoping work to ensure that you are going to do the required work and you're not going to do what's not required. Okay. So again, scoping of work ensures that you're only doing the work that is required and you explicitly identify what work you are not going to do. And you do this by setting boundaries or exclusions that is not included in your backlog. The key activities for scope management are defining the work to be done and obviously the work not to be done. And that there's also validating completed work. So let's say you've done work, obviously the required work, then you also validate, okay, did you actually do it up to spec, for example? And lastly, controlling the scope. And that's where we want to go into more in this discussion. So how do we now control the scope? So if we talk about scope creep, it's basically uncontrolled work, right? You have this scope that you have, like the one you see on the screen earlier, we had a separation of the required work and the excluded work, but now we have work that's trying to creep into the scope of our project or our product. And uncontrolled work means that this is the kind of work that you defined without adjusting the time, the cost, and other resources that you use to deliver your product or project. Okay, so again, scope creep happens when you have uncontrolled work getting into your product or your project. But you might be thinking, especially on the agile perspective, change is inevitable, right? And especially in startups like Edukasyon, we welcome change because change means learning and action. Like you have your product here, that's the scope of the product, and there are a lot of items trying to go in, like new features, new pricing, content updates, and earlier release dates. So how do we like try to solve these various changes? And I have like two very high level solutions for this to minimize scope creep is for number one, especially for projects, is that you define inclusions and identify exclusions to your scope document or even your product backlog. So we often think in Agile or in Scrum that our product backlog has the tasks that we should do. From time to time, some of those tasks tend to be of lower priority or no longer valuable to us. So instead of removing it, you try to maybe identify it as no longer included or no longer valuable, so that in the future you can immediately identify scope that is excluded from your work. So that's one of the main ways to minimize scope creep. And the other one is time boxing. And obviously, time boxing in a in a technical manner is simply rolling wave planning with iterations, better known, of course, as sprints. And generally speaking, when we talk about sprints, we have like some sort of ceremonies for feedbacks. And the common ceremonies we have are from Scrum. And we have the sprint planning meeting, and it helps you align with all stakeholders on what prioritized work will be done for a sprint before it even starts. So since the sprint hasn't started, you can definitely add changes to your scope as long as hopefully you've identified your sprint goal first, so that all of the changes that you want to make will be part of your sprint and will actually help you achieve your sprint goal. The next one that we have for Scrum ceremonies is the daily Scrum meeting, and it reminds everyone of what work was committed for the sprint, what you're working on, what impedes you, and the main part in terms of scope that the daily Scrum meeting will help you out is to really show you what you've committed to that sprint. Any other updates from the team that's not related to the sprint is kind of a red flag, especially for other members of the team. So be wary of updates through the daily Scrum meeting that's not really part of the sprint work. And the next Scrum ceremony is the backlog refinement meeting, and it allows everyone to check the product backlog for upcoming work. And it's obviously uh, welcome to change since it's for upcoming work. Everyone can put their ideas into the backlog. Everyone can refine it. It's not part of the sprint. Everyone's just thinking ahead, right? The last two ones, the first one is the sprint review meeting. It will present work that was completed, and obviously, since it may have been completed, it was identified that that was some work that was done during that sprint, and it could be a possible scope creep. And if there are like understandably some scope creep in the project, or rather the sprint, you can utilize the sprint retrospective meeting to understand how that scope creep happened, how was uncontrolled work entered into the iteration or your sprint, why did someone do something when they shouldn't have done that. And you now work with the team to understand how you operate as a team to continue to find ways to minimize scope creep, at least in your succeeding sprints. So that's a very broad overview of scope management, how we can use it in our projects and definitely our products through um, our agile methodologies or even values, right? Even the values will help us identify ways to minimize scope creep. So I hope there's something that you could take away from this short presentation of mine. If not, please feel free to leave your questions or clarifications in the comments, and me and the rest of the panel will try to further elaborate on that. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us tonight, and I would like to hand it over back to Rafi.
All right. Thank you so much for that insight, Z. So before we entertain some of the questions from our audience, just a few shout outs no? From Alan Flores, first time watcher here. We also have Jay Rald. Good evening, everyone. And then, of
Welcome.
course, we have Andre that says scope creep creep. So I think Andre is very familiar with scope creep. Uh, and I like his. There's a different comment here that says, he once tried to make a tic-tac-toe program, but ended up learning trigonometry to create
Wow.
an ASCII circle. So from that simple tic-tac-toe on how to draw probably the circle, it became a trigonometry exercise. Right. So again, to our audience, if you have any questions, please do leave it in the comment. Ask anything to Z or Zenon. And may nagpapabati tayo kay Christine. Sabi niya, first time watcher din po.
Hello. Hello.
Papabati. Hello, Christine. Right. So let me start off since you've already mentioned some of these. I just want to ask a couple of questions from the audience, is from myself before I bring in the rest of the panel. So, for I want to ask, what are the do's, especially the don'ts? No, you mentioned the do's already. What are the don'ts of Scrum meetings, of these ceremonies?
Sure. Surprisingly, I have more do's than don'ts. Kasi mas parang guideline na kailangan mo gawin kaysa bawal mo gawin. So, let me start off dun sa do's, no? So, do have a meeting leader. Usually, that would be your Scrum Master. Pero for some teams, especially small ones, nominate someone to actually lead your meeting. Para someone can take control of the time. Siyempre, hindi naman some. Actually, all of these Scrum ceremonies are time boxed. Like some of them are just 15 minutes, some of them are just 1 hour. So we have to maximize the time that we have. So again, have a meeting leader. Another do is submit minutes as much as possible, especially if you have a larger team. Oops, namatay yung ilaw ko. So, I'll just continue. I'll fix it later. So, if you have a larger team, then may chance na may mga hindi makakapunta. Like, lagi may excuse na masyado maraming team, so mas maraming variables sa time nila. So, as much as possible, if you can jot down minutes, then have that and distribute it to everyone. A few more would be identify action items and people responsible, especially for ad hoc meetings. If you have ad hoc meetings, minsan, okay, may discussion tayo, pero hindi nyo na alam na may action point pala doon tapos no one was responsible. Hindi siya nagawa. And possibly, hindi kayo aabot by the end of the sprint. And lastly, for the do's, do stick to your time box. Pag sinabi 1 hour, dapat 1 hour lang yan. Pag lumagpas, for sure may mali kayong ginagawa kasi hindi kayo naging efficient sa time. And my only don't is actually related to the time box is not to scope creep your meeting. So, wag kayo magdi-discuss ng wala sa agenda. Kung siguro may 5 or 10 minutes kayo for anything else, like doon may 10 minutes of scope creep, pero paglalagpas na, defer it to a different sidebar discussion, schedule another meeting kung kailangan. And yeah, yun yung do's and don't ko.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. No. The next question I have is, as you mentioned, these, especially in the Scrum meetings, not all stakeholders are involved in the stakeholder. No. How do you communicate the changes that could happen during the course of the sprint? Is it only, do you wait until the alignment, or are there other ceremonies, no, that you should involve all stakeholders?
Right. I think the other panelists might disagree with me. Pero the idea of agile kasi is really on values, not on following like strict rules or strict ceremonies. So whatever works for a team, especially if you're following agile values, then you don't actually necessarily have to stick with your committed items for your sprint. Okay, so yung mga ibang items like ako personally, I stick to the iteration or your sprint goal. So, pwede ka mag-scope creep konti as long as it will help you achieve your goal better. So, for example, your sprint goal is to get one user to give you a 5-star review on your food, no? So, let's say you're doing this kind of work, tapos sinabi ng isang stakeholder, oh, I think pag ginawa mo to, you can get that 5-star sooner. Or you can get 2 people to 5-star than just 1 person. Since yung goal ko is to actually have a good review for that sprint, then I'm actually open to changing my scope a little bit for that sprint. But for some teams, especially those who are actually very tied to their structure, especially for corporate teams, they wanna manage yung timeline din kasi nila. So, time box na, itong sprint na to, ito yung module na gagawin natin. So, anything that you wanna add to it should be managed, for example, for succeeding iterations.
Right. Thank you so much. No? And as mentioned, ito na, exciting na. Let's bring in our other panel to join us. So may I call on Brent, Richard and Raymond. All right. So, of course, to everyone here, to our audience, let's ask first, can you describe your position and role in your organization? No? What are the methodologies that you practice? Let's give the audience the definition first. Let's start off with Brent. Can we start with you?
Wow, thank you for giving me the trajectory for this question. And perhaps I could start with a bit of a reflection of what I really do, actually. So it is really with tremendous ambiguity. The role is just too ambiguous to play, although I'm in good faith with the Scrum Guide. And as a Scrum Master, I really aim to what accounts an effective Scrum Master through the guide, through books, and through other media. And I see keywords or phrases like help each other understand the new rules of the game, because as a matter of fact, Scrum is a new game that people can play, and it has its rules. It may not be as prescriptive, but it has rules. And how to overcome obstacles or reframe obstacles as the path, and sensing phenomenon and patterns. So it's a lot cultivating habits and replacing habits that are more what I would say effective or desirable, and helps you achieve the outcome that you desire to achieve. So it's, on the other hand, it's also trying to support organizations in its creative and adaptive capabilities. After all, if we're going to go back to one of the properties in Scrum, is trying to help organizations be better in complex product development. So I know there's a lot to talk about here, and I would be very careful to talk about it, because all of this carried a lot of things that are very meta in level, no? So something deeper than what I think it is. And I don't think it's easy to proclaim, to know these things without borrowing the wisdom of others. But I find that it is not enough, and it risks a lot of confidence to that. So while it is useful to be enthusiastic about this, I really love how people are just genuinely curious about the concepts. And people around here, is a huge step forward to understand and be aware of what's going on. So
Right.
if you want to ask me about my role, I just try to do things and see if it could work.
Right. Very interesting, though. And as you mentioned, it's all about there's a lot of collaborations in people, and that's exactly why we're doing a panel to get the best insights from everyone. May I now call on Richard? Also, describe to us your role, what EBM is. Yes, please.
Sure. So I am a consultant for Palo IT in Hong Kong. I just recently moved here. I used to work as an Agile coach and Scrum Master for a financial institution in the Philippines. My role is basically wear the hat, the Agile hat that the organization needs in order to become better at transforming their organizations for better ways of working. So part of that work is really learning better ways of working, and then teaching that or supporting organizations in their journey of learning these things as well. One of the things that I am currently working on is EBM, or evidence-based management, which is basically understanding the value that an organization is trying to achieve, and looking at ways to improve the organization based on these metrics. So some of these may either be time oriented, so how soon can you get to market? Some of these could be what are the things that are getting in the way for your organization to get to the market, and sometimes it's learning what the real value is of your product in the market if you did something differently.
Right. Thank you. And last but not least, of course, we have Raymond.
So hey there, everyone. Thank you for attending. So I'm Raymond, so you could also call me Rad. I work for IBM as a software demand leader. So I do manage everything related to software with regard to one of our main platforms, which is Engage Support. I do also co-manage or co-admin one of the local groups here in the Philippines, which is Agile Leaders PH. So we do handle talks like these. And a lot of the talks that we have cover a lot of content with regard to product, leadership, Scrum, Agile, and everything else in between. So that's it for me.
Right. Thank you so much. No? And again, to our audience, you will see that they have their respective communities. You should also definitely attend their own meetups, as they mentioned. So let's start off with a question. Again, anyone can ask in the comments, but let me start off with a question addressed to Richard. Since as there's a lot of changing scope in that sense, or changing direction, and sometimes there's this term called unrealized value, right? Which is different from scope creep. How can you identify and to make sure that it's really unrealized value versus a scope creep?
So it really depends on what the scope creep actually contains, and what's the value that you associate with that scope creep. And in a sprint, if we're talking about a 2-week sprint and you just started and new information is arriving, which could be determined as scope creep, I look at that from a lens of value. And if I was a Scrum Master to the product owner, I would try to coach them to think about how, or even the developers, how might this new information help them or prevent them from achieving their sprint goal. And it has to be a conversation between the developers building the work, analyzing the work, understanding the customer's needs, and the product owner, who has to make a decision whether or not this change has any value to the goal that they're trying to achieve. It could be that there is a value versus risk type of issue, where that's a high value but high risk scope change. So there has to be a work that the team needs to agree upon that they would do to at least validate the hypothesis that if we do this, we gain more value, even though there's a high risk involved, versus if we do this and there's a high value, but the risk is we won't deliver anything useful by the end of the sprint. There has to be an acceptance of that risk, or at least communicating that risk to stakeholders so that they can manage their expectations. So it's really, to Z's point about uncontrolled work, if your work is towards more discovery than feature factory, you're trying to learn as much as possible what is going on in out there and validating it sooner rather than later, and your people are guided through by what they know, rather than gut feel or guesses, unsubstantiated guesses, right? Or very seat of the pants type of decision making. Then you would see some anti-patterns when it comes to scope creep. But when we are having conversations on value, then from my experience, it doesn't. It's a healthier conversation. It's a healthier team, and it's a healthier product.
Right. Great. Our next question actually comes from our audience. So we have a question from Julie, which says, can you suggest an efficient process to become a Scrum Master? Do you necessarily need an in-depth tech background? Actually, this is a good question. Do you need to become, do you have to be a programmer background? What's the, is there a shortcut? No, I think efficient, I'm not sure if it's a shortcut, no? But what's the right path to becoming a Scrum Master? And of course, I think we have to address this to Scrum Master PH, Brent.
Wow, that's a very interesting question. And as a short answer, no. But I'm going to tell a bit of a story, because I came from a technical background. And of course, I'm not exactly so sure what it looks like to not have one. And if I'm going to go to where my trajectory is right now, I would say that it can be helpful to understand a bit of how developers are are talking about, so that you could help bolster the context of which they are in, of where you are in. And on the other hand, it can also be a curse, because it can make you too participatory to the discussions of which the developers could be having on their own. So I think it's a bit of like a check and balance to consider. And if you ask me about what is suggestive of an efficient process to become a Scrum Master, I don't think there's anything that could make it so efficient, because it has a lot of power skills to cultivate.
Right. And let's ask the panel. Richard, would you like to add?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, to add to what Brent is saying, one of the things that helped me was that to find a mentor, to find someone who you look up to that has the skills that you feel are important to learn as a Scrum Master. It's also looking at learning, continuous learning. So there's learning online, there's trainings available, there is communities of practice such as Scrum Masters PH or Agile Philippines or Agile Leaders who can provide more information on what it takes to be a good Scrum Master and how fulfilling the journey is. So yeah.
Right. Thank you for that. Now, and I can attest that the community and like this really help you. I think it's a very efficient way to get to the skills that you want. No? Yes. So I'd like to ask the next question. I'll address this naman this time to Raymond, because our next question from our audience is really about scope creep. Is it bad or not? Especially in agile principle where we welcome changing requirements, right? So the question is scope creep really a bad thing if your team's goal is to deliver timely value? Assuming, again, my part two, assuming that the scope creep is actually more valuable than what has been committed earlier. No? So how do you balance this parang planning versus value, right?
Right. So I like to share one of the agile principles that we have now. So welcome changing requirements even late in the project. No, agile processes harness change for the customer's competitive advantage. So it's not necessarily like what Z had shared before. Na there's the excluded scope, then there's the included scope. Pero what we don't see or sometimes fail to see is from Rick's perspective or Richard's perspective na evidence-based management. These are the unrealized value na products or deliverables. No? Also, it would be good to understand if it aligns to the goal. So say, for example, your goal is to deliver a certain product or value. Then you see the feedback that came in as an emergent requirement. So you're halfway in your sprint, halfway in your time box that you're doing the project or the product. Then you see it. It's worth noting na as long as it's aligned to the goal, it's always good to shift and pivot accordingly. So you're not necessarily wasting what you did before. You're actually adding value to it. Kasi you get the feedback that you need. You get the value that you need as early as possible. So if you're gonna work on that, I think planned versus emergent. I think the latter would be a better approach, if ever.
Right. And I just got from my comms that our previous speaker would like to add on this. No? So I'll just bring in from backstage Z. You want to
Hi
comment
again.
on this? Yes.
Yeah, just very quickly. Again, scope creep is uncontrolled work. So it's not necessarily bad if you can manage it. But as long as it's uncontrolled, then that's really a bad thing. So scope creep, let's change the term, changes or added feedback or value or new work to be done is actually good if you can manage it throughout your sprint or throughout your project. So you actually think about how it will impact your cost, how it will impact your release schedule, and how it will impact your current development team, because that's additional work for them to do. So you might want to consider pushing back other items, or basically you just want to control that work so that it becomes valuable instead of something that disrupts your team. So again, scope creep is uncontrolled work, but if you can manage it, then it can be very valuable to you.
Right. Thank you for that. And I'm just gonna ask if Brent, you want to add to that as well?
Brent, you're on mute.
You're on mute. I think you're
All right.
still on mute.
Thank you. So, to piggyback on what Z and Rat said, they're very insightful. And I remember here listening or reading through a book by Jeff Patton, where once he said that scope doesn't creep, your understanding grows. By reframing to that, you then now see that it doesn't have so much guilt into it, because when you creep scope, it makes you feel bad about, hey, why didn't we think of this? Rather, we probably learned something, and hence it emerges. And now we're going to have to refine our decision making in terms of the trade-off of whether we want to attend to this right now, or are we going to attend it in a later time.
Right. Thank you for that. No. Let's move on to our next question. Is, as you mentioned, you have to measure the value that you bring in when we're doing our products. And we know that user feedback is one of the highest form of value measurement. However, of course, our users, they're of course they're users, and it could lead, and they might request something that you haven't planned out yet. So what is the best approach to address this kind of question in terms of managing user feedback with what you've already planned? And Brent, can I call on you again for this question?
All right, user feedback. Oh my, so there's a lot of, this is a rather nested question. One thing that I would consider is that you'll receive a lot of qualities of feedback. Sometimes it's easy and very tempting to say that your product works just because somebody approves your whatever that means. It could be coming from your stakeholders, assuming that your stakeholders are anyone that is internal. But for me, stakeholders are everyone that is participating in the value stream of which the product is forged on. So
right. So the users is a stakeholder. No, let's not forget the users are stakeholders. Yes. Right. And for our next question, I know we have a lot of questions now, and thank you again for our audience and for being very participative. We have a question from Clint, and I think this is an interesting question, especially for our young practitioners. What can you say about getting certifications? Is it a good way to learn and gain knowledge? Is it like the process? Or is it commercialization of what Agile is? What are your thoughts on certifications themselves? And I'll ask Richard to add to this.
Right. So I'm full disclosure. I'm looking at certifications for my own personal development. I see it as an acknowledgement that I have the baseline knowledge of what the topic covers, but my learning doesn't stop there. And my learning is a mix of, again, learning from people, learning from course materials, learning from mentors. and teachers about what they've experienced, what they've encountered, and the ways and the patterns and the behaviors that they were trying to achieve. Um, so so yeah, it's the certifications is a if you look at the certifications as a badge you must proudly wear, there also has to be humility that this is as far as you have gotten, right? And you need to now extend yourself beyond it so that you'll be more effective in the workplace.
Right. Thank you for that. Um, I want to go back to an earlier topic or earlier mention about Scrum and their rules or their stances. No? Sometimes there's this term called the clerk stance, no? Wherein the product backlog often end up, there's a ton of backlog because maybe you allowed a lot of these uncontrolled work or even you realize some value of the new information. So Z already mentioned some of his techniques in terms of dealing with backlog. Uh, in your case, how would you clarify the clerk stance, no? Especially if you potentially could be having a ton or hundreds of items, and you no longer understand the reason of these backlogs. So let me call on first Brent, and then Richard after.
All right. Wow, this is a very interesting question. I would like to offer that it's all right to become a clerk at times. It may be necessary in some contexts. It really depends on whether that is a useful stance to begin with. But I would like to offer a bit like what pattern does this entail? Because what happens is that I think and I begin to wonder if we have all these collective hoarding tendencies. Because after all, if we always have an ever-growing backlog, that is fine. But are we pruning it? And if you're going to ask me about whether there's just so much things in the backlog that people just cannot keep up, what we have to consider is that there are many ways to name those product backlog items. Some people call it user stories. Some people call it technical requirements. What I find a useful heuristics is to find clusters or what we call affinity. How are they related to each other? Because a lot of times people just put it there because probably there are unwritten rules of the game that suggested that, hey, we are pretty much measured by the number of product backlog items that is being placed on the product backlog. If that is the unwritten rule of the game, because somebody said it, somebody superior would say it, what happens is that then you have an artificially inflated backlog just because to meet those expectations. But then I would like to ask if there is any coherence to those product backlog items. Does it require 20 product backlog items to deliver a value to a certain person or to a certain demographic or to somebody else that is, a particular stakeholder group? And that's usually what I would do is an exercise of, hey, we have all of these things that we just hoarded. Could we just put them in affinity? Like, how does they relate to what? And what are the most pressing, most pressured affinity that we would like to first address? And then comes the prioritization. But sometimes people would argue that prioritization is impossible because we're serving a lot of stakeholders at the same time. So maybe that is a time that we communicate clearly and a lot more, use a lot of conflict management in a very, very kind way to all the stakeholders that is participating on this.
Right. Richard, would you like to add on this?
Head over to Richard.
Hello. Right. So to add to what Brent was saying, it's important to get your stakeholders aligned on expectations and the backlog of work that needs to be done. And with evidence-based management, there's again using the unrealized value metrics to help really put a number on how much more valuable is this, and do either affinity mapping or relative estimations, and do it as a group. Have all your stakeholders in a room and have a card that represents a backlog item, and then do the if I'm not mistaken, the 35-5 type of game, where each person talks to each other about the card that they are holding and assigns a value relative to each other. They talk to at least one, and they place the number on each other's cards. They swap and then talk to another person. They do this for 5 rounds, and until all the cards are filled out with 5 entries of scores, they add it up, and then they order it, and there's your backlog. So there is an inherent understanding of assumptions, of desirability, of feasibility, and viability based on what these collective decisions have been made on the backlog of work. And as a scribe, you've effectively facilitated the wisdom of the crowd and gotten their feedback on it, and they've taken quote unquote ownership of the value. And as a clerk, that saves your butt because you're not in the hot seat anymore as far as ordering these things, and there is a shared understanding of value.
Right. Speaking about, again, value and basically innovation, that's really what we want, especially at times right now. For us, sometimes we work with clients, and it's understandable. We have projects with clients. It's not necessarily just internal clients or our own product. And we know that sometimes our clients, they have a tendency to request for good to have, right? They want it. They believe it's really required. It's in the guise of must have. How do you utilize the feasibility aspect in order to control or mitigate these kinds of scope creep? No? How do you balance this? How do you tell the client that kind of feedback? And Raymond, how would you address this?
Okay, thank you for that. I think this is best applied seen through the lens of innovation. No? So if you're looking at the lens of innovation, there's the desirability, there's feasibility. Most often than not, stakeholders come in, parang may mga baon sila na, hey, I want this. This is something that the customers or the clients need, and this is going to give us more value, give us more money, yada yada, right? Pero if you're gonna look at it from a desirability and feasibility perspective, it's something that is a good to have, no, not necessarily a must have. And I think it's a part of, let's say, a product owner, a product management role or person to understand what particular stance to be at, in order to understand that, hey, this is a good to have, but this may not contribute to the value that we are seeing. Then maybe walk through the stakeholder. You could do a roadmap, you could do a discovery to understand, no? If they are still pushy, maybe you could run a hypothesis, you could do A/B testing, you could do a lot of approaches na hindi siya kakain masyado in terms of time and cost. If you're looking at, let's say, from a lens of a normal or traditional project approach, also from an agile approach, either way it's applicable.
Right. Thank you so much. And thank you again to all our panelists. No? We are about to close. We are already very close to our time. And so just I'd like to ask some parting words from everyone. No? Basically to our audience, what are your how to be you po, or your advices to our audience in terms of practicing the best way to become product or project managers? And let me start off with Raymond, since I got you a while ago. You're as leader of Agile Philippines. What are your advice?
So always listen to your stakeholders, your clients, your customers. If you are a product owner, product manager, customer is key. Value is not something that you come up with. Value is something that your recipients come up with, and feedback as early as possible is key in order to succeed in whichever business that you have, whether it's a startup or a large organization.
Right. Thank you. And Brent, if I can, your last words and advice.
All right. So a lot of the muscles that we have to cultivate is barely here. Well, it's helpful, but it's a lot more on the heart, I would say. And I in the past, I was very terrible at this. So a lot of times we arrive to work with the notion that, okay, I'm here to prove my worth. And it goes back to what Rad mentioned, is to go back to, am I going to this company to prove my value as to what I could deliver for this company, or I come here to help, be in service to what the organization needs. And so empathy is really a key skill, and I have to admit it's a very hard muscle to cultivate, because it requires really connecting to the person that you're going to talk with beyond the blame, to have a conversation. Because all of these skills, all of these tactics that we're trying to discuss in order to grow as part of this role would be nothing without having this relational value that you have with your peers. So I guess try to balance both things and see how it goes.
Right. And of course, our last panelist, thank you again.
So
Richard?
last word, yeah. So thanks. Thank you for this opportunity once again. And as my last words for this event and for the topic, bring data and link it back to your goal as far as and make decisions based on evidence. And good luck in your product management journeys.
All right. Any event that you wanna promote as well, Richard?
Right. So for evidence-based management PH, we have a contest that is looming. The details are being prepared right now. So if you're looking to learn more about evidence-based management and you're curious as to what the contest might be, please join us in our Facebook page and stay tuned for further details.
Right. Okay. So thank you again once more, panelists, for inspiring us on your wisdom and your insights on the topic. So to our audience, thank you again for being here with us. And we would also like to, again, if you enjoyed our event and you really, you picked up some of the learnings and you want to stay tuned with us, of course, do follow us in our social media accounts and also our Ciclab Pilipinas account in our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as well. Right. And thank you so much for the comments, especially the heart comment, as I can see here from Gracel. Thank you for that. And of course, we want to hear more from you in terms of your feedback. We really want you to tell us, how we can improve, what topics we can bring in, which groups you want to have a discussion with. And so aside from the heart sign from the comments, we would actually also like to encourage everyone. It just takes 1 minute or less to answer our CSAT section, which I think we have a QR code, and also in the comment box as well. So please do scan me and take a quick survey on how we did and what topics you would like us to discuss as well. And of course, to anyone who wants to start their cloud career, this series is co-presented by AWS and AWS Ciclab. And so I'd like to share with you this interesting journey on how to start your career through this very short introductory video as well.
Welcome to AWS Educate's Cloud Career Pathway. AWS Educate helps you create a pathway into innovative and lucrative opportunities in the rapidly expanding cloud industry. On AWS Educate, you will discover the skills necessary to advance into cloud careers, explore content, test your knowledge, seek micro-credentials as badges and certificates of completion, and even have the opportunity to apply for jobs and internships in the cloud. Start off by building your profile, adding your resume, classes, degrees attained, and other facets of your experience. Then, select a cloud career field. From there, we'll personalize your plan by providing content that matches your pathway. As you consume that content, we'll prompt you to take knowledge checks of 3 to 5 questions in order to gauge your comprehension. After you've completed 50% of the knowledge checks, you'll have a chance to earn an AWS Educate badge. Then, uplevel your profile by completing a project and a final assessment, and you can receive an AWS Educate certificate of completion. Take applicable courses at your school or online to grow your knowledge and fill gaps in your skill set. All of these achievements can be added into your portfolio. Then put it all together. Apply for a job or internship at Amazon or at one of our customers or partners through the AWS Educate job board. Download your portfolio and send it to your potential employer to get your ideal job in the cloud. So what are you waiting for? Start your career pathway today. Welcome to AWS Educate's Cloud Career Pathway. AWS Educate helps you create a path. Welcome to AWS Educate's Cloud Career Pathway. AWS Educate helps you create a pathway into innovative and lucrative opportunities in the rapidly expanding cloud industry. On AWS Educate, you will discover the skills necessary to advance into cloud careers, explore content, test your knowledge, seek micro-credentials as badges and certificates of completion, and even have the opportunity to apply for jobs and internships in the cloud.